Today we got in the studio Bobby Browning. He's a general contractor, fixer of all things. Nowadays he does cars, houses, everything. He also works as an actor and a model.
Yep.
How you doing, Bobby?
Pretty good. How you doing? I'm
doing all right. Reason I brought you out here, man, is because this is kind of I'm not very used to talking about such heavy things.
Okay.
Your mother has passed away.
Yes, she died on July the 3rd.
July the 3rd. It is July the 20th.
Yes. Roughly 2.5 weeks ago.
Can you tell us what happened to her? Well, the reason is because when I went to your funeral, to your mother's funeral, you spoke to me about how she was struggling and the treatments she was going through, and certain drugs she had to take. And you mentioned that there was a drug that really helped her out in the beginning.
Right.
And this got my attention. In no way I'm advocating for this drug for someone who's going through cancer, but they may do research on their own, and if this helps them out at the end, at the end of the day, then that would be great. Can you talk about the treatments she was going through, what helped her out?
I think the best way to talk about this is start with where she first was diagnosed, or when she was first diagnosed. It was, oddly enough, almost exactly 5 years to this month. It was August 2018 when she first was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And it was kind of an odd thing. Basically, we had just gotten back from going to the beach. Normally families go to the beach or go on vacation in July. And she had like a stomach issue, and she thought maybe she'd just eaten some really bad food or whatnot. And after a lot of doctor visits, they basically found out that she had cancer. And the way they originally diagnosed it was ovarian cancer stage 3. And like with any other cancer, when you're diagnosed with something like that, I mean, it's pretty extreme. Anything past 1, regardless of what people say, it's pretty extreme. And ovarian cancer is it's kind of like pancreatic cancer. It's almost like a death sentence.
It's a death sentence.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme. So, like with most patients, what they do is they put together a team of doctors and PAs and dietitians that try to help you on different facets of your cancer journey. And with my mom's, I can't remember the exact name of the drug they put her on, but we'll talk about the surgery first. So we are very blessed living here in the Southeast.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. What was that like when were you there with her when the doctors diagnosed her, or when she
It was my mother and my father. Yeah, I mean, they went in thinking it was maybe a stomach issue. Like I said, maybe she just had a stomach pain that just never went away. And with something like that, you don't know. You don't know till you have a CT scan, PET scan, or one of the newer scans they're using to detect these things. And even then, they can do 2 or 3 CT scans and not find out exactly what it is. But they did her scans focusing on her GI and her intestinal area, and that's directly above a woman's ovaries, uterus, all that stuff. And they detected a 7 millimeter cyst on her, or a 7 millimeter tumor on one of her ovaries. And so basically like back to the story about Atlanta, we have some of the best cancer surgeons in the whole country here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And just based on where my parents lived, they lived on the Georgia-Alabama border. So I think one of the biggest problems mistakes they made looking back at it now is they didn't come to Atlanta from the get-go. They just dealt with local, like in Carrollton, the local medical organization out there. It's Tanner Medical to treat.
That's in Carroll.
That's in Carrollton,
Carrollton, Georgia.
And I don't want to sit here and talk bad about the treatment she received there. I think it was very good. I don't think it was the very best that she could have received. I honestly believe she should have gone to Emory Winship from the get-go. Emory Winship is spectacular. It's hands down the best cancer treatment center in the East Coast. The surgeons there, actually, I know a couple of surgeons that do surgeries there, and it is just hands down the best place you can go if you ever have any kind of diagnosis of cancer. But that being said, they went to Tanner, and it's kind of a mystery. It was about a week or two period before, because usually when you get a CT scan, you have to wait for the radiologist to basically look at it and break it down for the doctor. Then the doctor gets back to you. So, I mean, I've in this day and age, I don't know why when you get a CT scan, you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks.
Was it a complete surprise for
Yes,
her?
it was devastating for my mom. I remember distinctively the day she called me and told me that she had ovarian cancer. She started breaking down crying, and it was just weird to me because I've never really seen, I don't think I can recall too many times in my lifetime that my mom called me crying. So it was pretty intense for me, and then they found out that the tumor was 7 centimeters. That's a pretty large tumor. It's about the size of a large lemon. So basically what happened was her surgeon, she had a really spectacular surgeon. He's I can't remember his name right now, it's slipping my mind, but he actually travels, or used to travel. He's retired now. He used to do surgeries, multiple hospitals in Atlanta, but primarily Northside and at Emory. So he was a really great surgeon. And they went in, they removed the tumor, they removed her ovaries, and they also removed I think it was called a supplicum or something similar to that phrase. It's a muscle that only women have that's set for basically giving birth to children. It protects their vital organs. How
long ago was it before after she found out she had had cancer?
I think
and then the surgery.
The actual surgery. I think it was within 4 or 5 months of her actually, being diagnosed. It might have been less. I can't remember exactly. I know for a fact that she was diagnosed in August. I think the surgery was sometime between October and November, so maybe less than that, maybe 2 to 3 months. But I know that she immediately, when you have a tumor like that, they automatically start hitting one of two things, radiation or chemo. So for her, and I wasn't present with most of the doctor visits. I wish I would have been, looking back on it now. I mean, I've learned a lot more about it, after dealing with her cancer journey. I guess that's the best way to put it. But I would say that the chemo they put her on, and for most people that don't know how chemo works, it's not like a once a month kind of thing. You go every week. And with my mom's visit, she went every Tuesday. And I cannot remember the exact name of the original chemo they put her on. It's something like mastaplaxin or something like that. It's got a weird name.
Was the purpose of the chemo to shrink the tumor?
Well, no, this is after the tumor's already been removed. This is actually to kind of shock the system, because if you learn anything about chemo, you realize it spreads like crazy. When people say spreads like a cancer, they don't really understand, I think, what they're talking about. It's kind of like poison ivy. Whatever it touches can become that poison ivy and spread. Same thing with cancer. Like when a woman has breast cancer, a lot of times, almost all the time nowadays, they'll go out and do a double mastectomy where they go and they remove both breasts because their fear is that the cancer spread from one breast to the next. Mm-hmm. Even if they're, depending on the size of, the breast, a couple inches apart, they can still spread from one mammary gland to the next. It's the same thing with ovarian cancer. So what they do is they try to remove every organ that they think might be infected, as well as any tissue that might have touched the tumor, because that's how it spreads. And, you look at cancer nowadays, I think a lot of the dogma of it is changed so much. I mean, people talk about hereditary cancer, and I think that everything I've been reading and learning about lately tells that that's not the case. Cancer isn't all hereditary. I'm sure some people can be.
Some of the experts that I've looked into,
yeah,
they talk about that it can be hereditary, but for the most part, it is not.
Exactly.
So it can be, but for the most part,
I mean, we're looking at things that, like with lung cancer. I mean, lung cancer kills more people than any other cancer in the world. Most people don't know that. And it's crazy. You look at some of the most famous, wealthy people in the world have died lately, like Kelly Preston. She never smoked, and she died of lung cancer just a couple of years ago. And, it's strange that people who aren't smokers aren't smoking some, tobacco, doing any kind of dipping or whatever kind of tobacco product you use, they're dying from that. So I think that there's more to it, a lot more to it than what we're learning or what doctors even know nowadays.
Well, here's the thing. This guy that I saw on YouTube, Dr. Thomas Seyfried. He's not a medical doctor, but he's a doctor of philosophy. But he's a researcher, and he some of the statistic that he mentioned was 1,700 people in the United States die from cancer every day.
Yeah, every day.
And then, for the most part, generally speaking, Eskimos, they don't have cancer. Also, the African tribes out there who are out there, tribal lifestyle.
Right.
They don't have, for the most part, they don't have cancer either.
Right.
So, what conclusions can you get from this?
From what I would, if I look at my mom's case in particular, we basically have narrowed it down to what the cause of her cancer, I think, honestly, was her using baby powder. For
baby powder.
Yes, baby powder for her, women parts. That's a nice way to put it. But basically, women in the 50s, 60s, 70s, as recently as the 80s, used to use baby powder for their private parts, for deodorizing air or whatever, cleaning, for moisture, for deodorizing, smell, whatever. Not to get into the dirty parts of it, but basically for female care. And if you look around and you do a little bit of a research on it, you'll see that there's a ton of lawsuits involving that because Johnson & Johnson used to use talcum powder as one of the main ingredients in baby powder, and that's been proven to cause cancer. And unfortunately, I think that's really what it was. I mean, because my mother, genetically speaking, if you look at my family, my great-grandmother, she lived to be 98 years old. My grandmother is
98 years old.
My grandmother is 94 years old, and my mom just passed away two and a half weeks ago at 74. So the way I look at it, my mom should have lived another 2 decades. But this happens so quickly and so rapidly. I mean, I just don't know any other thing. My mother, my father don't smoke. They don't live in a house that has bad air. Air quality is good. The water quality is good. So you have to kind of narrow it down to possibly diet, factors including lifestyle. My mom was very active, before she was diagnosed. I mean, she actually used to do 5Ks with me at least once or twice a year. And she had a really good time for a lady in her late 60s, early 70s. So I don't really think it was a case of, lifestyle, not exercising, because those are huge contributing factors to cancer in general. People that don't exercise, people that don't eat properly, those are the number 2 reasons why people get cancer in the first place.
So this one thing that this expert or researcher, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, talks about is that he says that in a cancer cell, and I'm probably going to sound really stupid talking about it because I watched this information a week and a half ago, and I'm not sure if I can recall it properly. Okay. But he says that there's 2 ways that cells get energy. Right. And one of the ways, if they don't get the oxygen, they can ferment.
Yes, and fermentation, yes.
And this happens from sugar.
Yes.
From sugar intake.
Yeah, glucosamine and sugar, they're the same thing.
Glucose and glutamine. So if you limit those 2, then...
well, the interesting thing about glutamine is that's amino acid, and a lot of people get that without even realizing they're getting it. Refined sugar is really, really bad for you. And it's interesting. I see this every day in every step of my life. I actually was in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, before this whole thing happened to my mom, literally a week before, out there doing a job. And I ran into a lady. It was the craziest thing I'd seen in a while. She must have been at least 75 to 80 years old. And she was walking from one side of San Francisco to the other side of San Francisco. And this lady, I'm telling you, it was a little scary, but very impressive at the same time. Because I jog, I work out all the time for doing my job as well as just training and stuff. I'm actually preparing for a marathon coming up in February of next year.
Okay.
And it's crazy because when you do those kind of things, you do a lot of wear and tear on your body. Doing 26.2 miles is kind of nuts to me. I've never done it before. I'm kind of actually a little scared about it, but I'm actually about to start training for that. But the crazy thing is that is the 5th week of 2024. And leading up to that, I'm doing a 5K, a 10K, a 15K, then another 5K. Then I'm doing that half marathon. So I'm doing big races every week. So to condition my body to get into that kind of shape, it's going to be 10 to 20 miles jogging a day, plus like 5 to 10 miles on a bike, as well as throwing in free weights. So back to this lady that I met, she basically every day she does this. She's got to be like 75, 80 years old. She wears like a 2-piece bikini too. That's the crazy thing, like boy shorts bikini and like a string bikini. And she has like a 10 or 15 pound dumbbell, and she just does this and just changes hands. And I talked to her, oddly enough, I saw her and I was like, what the hell? I mean, I couldn't believe it. I saw her on a bus on the western side of San Francisco. About an hour and a half later, I was at the other side, the eastern side. And she had walked all the way around San Francisco in a loop. And I said to her, man, you're like a beast. How did you do that? And she's like, I do it every single day. And I was buying a Dr. Pepper at this convenience store, and I saw what she was buying. She was getting a big jug of aloe water. And she said, I told her, I'm trying to start getting in better shape. I'm trying to trim down and train for this marathon coming up. And she said, number one, you gotta delete that sugar out of your life. She said, that drink right there that you got in your hand, that's like pure poison. And I thought about it, and it's like, it didn't even dawn on me at the moment. I was just kind of in awe of this lady, because that's where I wanted.
This you're getting back to the fermentation.
Yes, the fermentation, because sugar feeds cancer, and cancer can replicate the same story that you heard this doctor talking about. That cancer can replicate even without oxygen. So the two things that feed it, amino acids and glucosamine, basically sugar. Processed foods. I'm a big believer that people that don't get out enough and get enough sunlight, it also leads to that. Your body is meant to fight these things, but if it gets so toxic from all the stuff we put into our bodies, lack of exercise, lack of going out in the sun, we're meant to do all these things. Just like you're talking about, the Eskimos, the Africans, they're probably outside in the sunlight, whatever kind of sunlight they can get each day, probably 10 hours. Most people don't. I mean, how does somebody that worked on the railroads 100, 200 years ago live to be 85 years old? And people are dying at 50 from heart attacks nowadays. It's diet and it's exercise. And people, they're really having a serious lack of that. I think in my mom's case, she basically got not necessarily so toxic, but one thing I've noticed about my parents, and I go and I look in their kitchen. That's what I do whenever I go to their house. And I see all this prepared food, all this microwavable junk. And that is not good for you. I don't care what anybody says. You're not supposed to be eating that kind of junk. I look at like the genetics of most human beings. Our body is 70% water. And really, if you think about how many, times you use the bathroom a day, what you're eating for your diet, we should be getting a gallon of water a day. Most people don't even get a third of that. And then you think about all the processed food.
Something I saw on Instagram that came up yesterday, that if you, like 90 minutes of strenuous exercise, reduces when you're sweating, it talks about dehydration.
Yep.
When you're having all this liquid come out of you through sweat.
Yep, you got to refill it.
Your gray matter in your brain shrinks by like some big percentage.
Oh yeah.
So, so yeah, the hydration that you're talking about, that's really important.
Oh yes, you have to hydrate and you have to get a lot of water. And then I'd have to say the actual things you put in your body. Right now I'm trying to find the perfect mix for myself. And a lot of the things I run into is I put extreme wear and tear on my body working on houses. And I mean, today's actually a very easy day. I just took apart of a electric fuse breaker box at a house and just found out the reason why he was having issues was because it was tripping all the time because it was a defective fuse. That's awesome. Yesterday, I was chopping down two 20-foot trees in my dad's house, and that was literally 6 to 8 hours of just straight manual labor, chopping down trees and shredding them up. So I probably had no less than, I mean, I try to do water bottles and I try to recycle them and refill them and reuse them. I had at least 1.5 gallons of water yesterday. So, I mean, every day with me, it's different. It varies, but
1.5 gallons for all that work.
You got
might
to.
Not be enough.
Yeah. I mean, I sweat through 3 or 4 shirts yesterday, and it was pretty extreme labor the last 2 days doing that at my dad's house. But, you know, a lot of people don't think like that,
so,
you know?
So getting back to your mom, you're saying that she did limit her sugar intake.
She did to a certain extent, but I think during the last so this whole journey took 5 years from when she first was diagnosed to her passing away almost. And I mean it's very strange if you look at it because so she was basically declared in remission of cancer about 2 to 3 years ago. So it was the beginning of 2004 in the spring. You know, you always see these commercials for cancer treatment centers and everybody's ringing the bell. And I really kind of wish they'd stop doing that, to be honest with you. It kind of infuriates me, you know, having a mother that just passed away from it because you always have cancer in your blood. All of us have cancer to a certain extent.
But your body is,
yes,
it's fighting
all
the
it
time.
Exactly.
The immune system is successful in taking care of those cancerous cells.
Exactly. And you know, my mom rung the bell and was in remission. And like we were talking about that prior drug that she was on.
What is that drug, Bobby?
I can't remember the name. It's something. It had like 3 parts to it, like a mastaflaxin or plaxin, something like that. I should have done a little bit more research on it, but that drug was very successful for putting her into remission. The combination of the actual tumor being removed and that drug, it really did bring her cancer numbers down. And for those people that don't really know about cancer, it's all about your blood. What kind of cancer numbers you have, marker numbers with your red blood cells, white blood cells, hemoglobin, all that stuff, and there's actually a percentage. And they say different numbers matter. Everybody's body's different, but when it comes to cancer, you want to be between. It's great if you could be less than 10. My mom's numbers were anywhere from 7 to 21 for the most part, and we knew stuff was going sideways in the last, I want to say about 1.5 years, because her cancer numbers. And keep in mind, she's been getting chemo the whole time. Even during COVID, she would go to the hospital and get chemo treatments to a certain extent. I think they reduced it to once a month instead of once a week when Corona was happening. Corona's just messed up.
What was that? What was that like? What was how did she deal with chemo? Was it hard on
it was
her
very
body?
Yeah, it was the chemo definitely was hard on her body. The stuff that she was on the first go round, she basically would get the chemo on a Tuesday. And exactly 4 days later, she'd have very bad issues. Like she would feel terrible. She would feel just like you're exhausted if you played football or worked out for 2 or 3 hours. Physically exhausted. Plus the side effects were diarrhea and vomiting sometimes. But that's all part of chemo. Of course, your hair falls out, your eyelashes, your eyebrows fall out. And I guess to a woman, it's so much. I mean, women when they feel beautiful, they feel special. More than men do. I think if you or I had cancer, we just deal with it. We ball-headed, until we either in remission or we just dealt with it. But for women, you want to look beautiful, you want to feel beautiful, and that makes you feel special. So it was very tough for her as a woman who cares about her looks, having all those things happen. And it kind of puts you off as a child of somebody with cancer when you want to go see your mom and they tell you, hey, I just want you to stay away, I'm throwing up, I have diarrhea. And it's really hard for a husband or wife to deal with that as well as a caregiver. So yeah, I would say that it's pretty awful, because when you get diagnosed with cancer, it's not just you, it's your family, it's your husband, your wife, your kids, everybody that cares about you that has to deal with it just as much as you physically. So I think.
Do you know what the success rate of beating cancer?
I don't know. I really don't know. Everybody's different. I know with ovarian cancer and pancreatic cancer, it's much, much worse. More women, I think, survive smaller, like skin cancer, statistically speaking, is much easier to get over than a lot of these other kind of treatments. My soon-to-be brother-in-law, he actually was diagnosed with, I think, skin cancer, either stage 1 or stage 2. And we think, we don't really know. It's just kind of guessing if we had to guess. He plays a lot of golf and is outside a lot, because cancer, as far as we know, doesn't run in my girlfriend's family as well. Her mother and father are very well in shape and very physically active, but her older brother had skin cancer, and I think that he had a very light dose of chemo, and I think he had to do 6 treatments. But I don't know how long that took. I don't know if that was every week or every month, but I know that from the moment he was diagnosed with skin cancer, the moment he was over it was 6 months. I wish it had been like that with my mom, but she had to continually take chemo for the last 5 years.
And you don't remember what was the name of that?
I don't remember the off the top. I mean, I can look into it and find out some more research about it, but
sure.
For the most part, it was very good. And the biggest problem we ran into, and this is something we dealt with the last year and a half, they had to change the chemo she was on to a much more aggressive kind of chemo. And the stuff they had her put on, I mean, even the doctors were telling her when she first started, and this was March of 2022, I want to say, basically this chemo was very harsh. A lot of the side effects were having orange fingernails, toenails, of course, losing all your hair, but just really bad issues when it comes to diarrhea, throwing up, just feeling physically just destroyed. Like literally, the difference was the other previous chemo she was on, she felt like she had a cold, or she just felt weak. This other kind, she felt like she literally was in a car wreck. That's how much it savaged her body. And recently, I know you and I discussed this. My mom went to the doctor about 4 or 5 months ago, and they said that this, the reason they can't get the old chemo, because she actually brought this up, was because of Corona. And I know that that's probably the case of people all over the country, where the better chemo that was available, readily available in 2019, 2018, 2020, prior to Corona, is not available anymore. Like they said, it wasn't available anywhere except in the West Coast.
And this is the
new chemo that she's on.
That really helped her out.
Well, the one that really worked quite well for her and put her in remission, it's not available anymore. And what we were told, and this is just so odd and strange, the doctors actually told her this, and she's got 2 really great doctors that were at Tanner. But what they told her was that this drug is not available, and this is just this is secondhand. I didn't hear him say this, but he said because George Soros and Bill Gates have bought up all of this chemo that works very well, and they're hoarding it. And I think it's kind of strange. I mean, if there's any truth to that, I honestly think
George Soros, he retired. I think he
gave
all of his assets to his son.
Well,
Alex.
he may have retired, but he's still very much influencing politics and medical.
How old is he?
He's in his late 80s. I know that much. 200
years old.
Well, if he's got the right drugs, he might see another 50 years. Who knows? But and back to the story of my mom. So the stuff that she was on, and this is, no one has taken responsibility for this, but I wholeheartedly believe this. The stuff that they put her on made the cancer worse. And I know that, the story that you're talking about that you'd seen on YouTube from that doctor, a lot of what he talked about was the treatments are worse than the original cancers.
Well, here's one thing I think he talks about. He says that if you have an alternative treatment method that based on the research, based on research that he and his friend researchers do, and they have certain results. If you go to those cancer treatment facilities and you ask them, hey, can we try this treatment? They have certain standards,
right?
And they can have their licenses pulled.
Yeah.
And if they will say, we don't do this here. They only do what is what is their protocol.
Yeah.
And if you go to the little bit to the left, a little bit to the right from the
protocol, you can have your license revoked and removed immediately. They can shut you down. I mean, I know all this stuff. I know actually a lot of people that work in all these different fields in this.
So on a tangent, getting into conspiracy theories,
right?
You think there might be perhaps someone really having a big interest in benefiting from 1,700 people dying from cancer?
Well, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, I think the pharmaceutical companies make a killing on all these different treatments. And I really...
It's kind of like giving the drugs to treat you but not cure you.
Right, exactly. It's about keeping you basically going to your insurance, going to your pocketbook to pay for these things. And I think that a lot of it's just garbage. So, I mean, it just depends on what people are willing to put themselves through. In my mom's case, she was a teacher for 35 years. She had spectacular insurance. Her insurance covered all of this stuff. And I think looking back on it, I mean, I really don't have a lot of hate. I mean, I feel like the doctors at her hospital did the best they could do. But I really feel like the pharmaceutical companies make a ton of profit off of people just wanting to have hope. And they feel like, getting chemo, getting radiation, that gives them hope or extends their life. My mom actually would say all the time, oh, I thank the doctors. I think that, if it wasn't for the chemo, I would have died long ago. And I'm like, really? Do you? I mean...
Well, this Dr. Thomas Seyfried from... He does the interview on Drew Purohit podcast.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought.
Well, I know what you're talking about. You're trying to get to. You're talking about the different treatments for cancer. And there's a lot of stuff out there. Talking about hypothetical stuff or conspiracy theories. It's funny. I was talking to my dad about this a couple days ago. And what a lot of people don't know about, the military is trained. They've tried a lot of different things on soldiers throughout the years. Actually, my dad thinks he got hepatitis B. I don't know if it was B or C, but one of those hepatitises. And the way they used to inoculate and do all the vaccinations for the soldiers, they'd line you up and a machine would literally, it was like a gun, like you'd use to, inject something or even like take tires off of a car. It was like, choo choo, choo choo. And what would happen was every time it gave a person a shot, it's supposed to kick the needle out and go to a new needle. And a lot of times, and at least 25% of the time when they were giving people their shots, giving their vaccines to send them over, overseas to fight in a war, they would use the same needle. And I mean, no one really talks about that kind of stuff, but the military has experimented on a lot of different things with a lot of different soldiers. One of the things my dad brought up actually yesterday, we're talking about this.
You're telling me they use the same needle
sometimes
for
the needle,
a bunch of people?
Yep, it's supposed to rotate and eject the old needle, and sometimes people would get viruses from other soldiers that were
Wow.
So I really think my dad got hepatitis. That's what the doctors that he's had his whole life think. So he's gotten over that, but it was really bad about 10 years ago. He lost a lot of weight, and it physically hit him like a freight train. So back to the whole thing we were talking about yesterday, he said that they actually had something, and this is hearsay, of course, from my dad talking about it, but they actually had a shot, the military had a shot that was supposed to cure all cancers back as far as like the 60s and 70s. I think if something like that really exists, it would work against the interest of the pharmaceutical industry. But this person, they did this, I mean, you don't hear about it nowadays. I never heard about it till I was talking about it yesterday. Has never had any kind of cancer in his whole entire life. So if there is any truth to that, yeah, that would work against $1 billion industry with the pharmaceutical companies with chemo. I mean, they make a killing off of all the chemo. And, it's...
I mean, here's the new scandal. all the vaccinations for the COVID.
Oh yeah.
They're nonsense.
Yeah,
you
I
didn't
mean,
have to, they didn't work.
we were lied to. We were lied to.
You had to do it. People were.
The sad thing about that
threatened
is,
with losing their jobs. Especially the health workers. If you don't get
the military,
it,
you get kicked out of the military if you or you're a pilot in the Air Force, or you're a pilot even working for Delta or Southwest. If you didn't get this shot, they were going to fire you. No matter if you have 30 years of distinguished service, they were ready to fire you like that. And I think now we're realizing that all that was just a bunch of BS. I never had that. I've never been given a COVID shot whatsoever. Luckily, I didn't.
Me neither.
Yeah, I didn't go and rush out and go get one. And I'm not some sort of conspiracy theorist when it comes to that. I just believe that our bodies are actually meant to fight these things on their own. And I think that. Well, here's a perfect example. So my girlfriend had both of the shots. I can't remember if it was Moderna or it was the other one that she had, but she literally got the shots. A month later, she went to Chicago and came back and gave me COVID. And so that was, or maybe I'm confusing the two times. I've had COVID twice. The first time I had Delta. And I think we actually got that one going to a soccer game and then going to Whitewater the next day. But we were around tons and tons of people that whole weekend. And then I think she went on a trip and she came back and she was sick with corona. So I was joking that she had given it to me. But the second time, she definitely gave me COVID. And so I'm like, wait a second. You've had the shots. We were originally told that if you have the shots, you can't get COVID. You can't give anybody COVID. I mean, we had everybody on TV was saying, you get this shot and there's no way you're going to get COVID. And then sure enough, she gave me COVID. So yeah, the first time I had it, it was the Delta variant. The second time, I don't even know what it was. She got it in Las Vegas, and I picked her up from the airport on a Tuesday, and I was sick with COVID on that Friday. Yeah. I literally picked her up Thursday, and I guess it was like 24 hours. I knew I had COVID. But the funny thing is, the differences between those two times. The first time I had Delta, I was one of those idiots. I just laid in bed. I watched TV, I ate food, and I was in a nice air-conditioned environment. And what I should have done, and what I learned from the second time I had COVID, is I went outside and I just sweated out. I went and I worked on some lumber projects I was working on. I was out. It was like the weather is right now. It was 95 degrees. And I was out there just sweating, doing physical labor. The first time I was sick for 2 weeks. I didn't take any medicine whatsoever. One of my friends actually gave me one of the pills that you're supposed to take. It's like penicillin, but not one of the crazy horse tranquilizer things, but like I can't remember which one it was. But it was one of those pills, and literally the moment I put it on my tongue, because my lungs were filling up with pus and stuff, or junk, that when I had Delta, I took, it wasn't amoxicillin, it was something else. But anyway, it was basically one of the ones that they say.
Amoxicillin is an antibiotic.
Yeah, but this was an antibiotic, but it was one of the ones that everybody was saying is kind of hearsay or whatever for COVID treatment. But it was a pill, and I had one of my friends gave me 8 of those. I took it, I remember, on a Sunday. Immediately, like my lungs were feeling like I was scared. Like I was like, oh crap, I'm going to have to go to an ER or something. I took that 24 hours later. You take 2 a day. 4 days later, it was completely out of my system. And I can't remember the type of drug it was. Something Victin. It was one of the ones everybody was talking about on the radio. Everybody was saying, oh, this is a Donald Trump conspiracy pill, whatever. All I know is I took 8 of them, and I knocked it out of my system. The second time, of course, I was outside physically sweating and working. I was like, nope, I'm not going to be in bed for 2 weeks this time. I'm going to go and physically work my butt off. And I actually got a prescription for Paxlovid. And that actually is the cure for corona. I don't care what anybody says. I know for a fact my girlfriend gave me corona on a Thursday. I had the symptoms Friday evening. I started taking that pill Saturday morning, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I was cured by Tuesday.
So, check this out. Again, referring back to that podcast, that researcher talk about cancer. Yep. He says that the Eskimos and the African tribes do not get cancer.
Yep.
So.
Well, I think you can actually tie that to the story.
Something that has to do with their lifestyle, what they eat.
I think
Eskimos don't eat anything
I honestly
but meat.
I honestly think.
And the carnivore diet also
what we were just talking about,
to help out.
It's all in a linear kind of line there. I think that a lot of it is physical exercise. I think a lot of it is how much water you take in and how much water you expel. I mean, ultimately, the number one thing for fighting these kind of viruses is your gut health. And I've actually over the last couple of years been changing everything. I mean, every now and then I'll have a hamburger. Don't get me wrong, but my body lets me know that was a big mistake within 12 hours. I make my own hamburgers, and it's funny. I never get sick when I make my own food. But when I get food at a restaurant or I get fast food, I really think, like even in the podcast they're talking about refined sugars and processed meats, processed grease, all that stuff factors into cancer. I'm getting to where I don't eat French fries anymore. If I'm gonna have a potato or starch, I don't add salt because it already has enough salt on its own. But I'm boiling a potato, chopping it up and just throwing a little cheese on it, and that's it. I'm not trying to add extra things that I know are going to cause me issues the older I get. I mean, I'm 47 years old, and if I look at people in my family, like I said, I have relatives that lived to 99 years old. There is no reason in this world why I won't see 100 years old if I eat right, if I exercise, if I have a strenuous physical activity going on every day. I think those are the three biggest factors in, living longer.
Also sleep and stress-free mentality.
Oh yeah, you gotta. I think I learned when I was 18 years old. I learned a long time ago that a lot of things in life just don't matter. People stress out about so much garbage. I think that these younger generations, they're all like causing themselves to have all this strenuous anxiety and stress for no reason. I mean, if you sit on YouTube looking at videos on your phone for 4 hours a day, but you can't go get 8 hours of sleep, that's a real problem. So, I mean, I think that's these kids nowadays, they're subjecting themselves to a lot of stuff we didn't.
So, getting back to your mom's treatment,
right?
Did she have to your knowledge, did she have proper diet and exercise and sleep?
No, she
and
didn't.
Stress-free environment.
She had plenty of. She was in a stress-free environment. She had a decent diet, but not a great one. I mean, towards the end, when things got really bad, I was telling her all the things I do, and she's like, "Oh yeah, maybe I should do that." I'm like, "Well, maybe you should have been doing this 4 or 5 years ago." My mother and father do a lot of those ready-to-eat meals that you microwave. Those are loaded with so many bad things. It's 100% processed.
Not sure if that's very good.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you? Yeah. If you're gonna, I mean, they're very like. They're on the cheap side.
Yeah, they're on the cheap side, but they're very bad for you. Any processed thing that you have to microwave, it's not good. And it's funny because every time I go see my folks, they're like, "Oh yeah, we got plenty of food in the fridge." I'm like, "Oh, lean cuisine garbage. This pot pies garbage. All the stuff they eat's just loaded with carbohydrates." That's right.
The researcher also talks about
your
carbohydrates. They're not good.
Your body converts carbohydrates into sugar. It's just like alcohol. You wouldn't give an alcoholic alcohol, but one of their crutches is they go to sugar. Sugar is an alcohol. People don't think about that kind of stuff. All this stuff feeds cancer. Overprocessed sugars, too many carbohydrates.
That's one of the things alcoholics can do to curb their cravings is to have a soda.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I've heard so many stories of people getting addicted to like a Diet Dr. Pepper. I love Dr. Pepper, but I'm having to cut that all out. After talking to that lady that did that, I'm like, man, I want to be more like you.
I mean, if you have the choice to be an alcoholic or addicted to sugar,
exactly,
probably you're gonna do better. Being addicted to sugar.
Yeah, you'll be better off doing sugar, but it's still gonna kill you.
The less of two evils.
But then you're gonna
stop at some point.
Yeah, you gotta ask yourself, what kind of life do you want to live? I love it when people say, well, I just want to, if I can't have alcohol, I can't have drugs, and I can't have fast food. I'm like, well, then try something else. I've had people that I've talked to that talk like that. And I mean, it's crazy to me because here I am, like looking at how much weight I can shed before doing a race. what can I do that's not going to physically hurt my body before I go work on it? Because if I hurt myself running, I can't work on people's houses or do anything. I don't make money if I'm injured and hurt. But most people don't think like that. They have like a 9 to 5, or they sit in an office or whatever.
Sedentary lifestyle is very bad.
Exactly.
If you're sitting in an office for 8 hours or 6 hours a day,
I mean, I think about that.
Home and sitting on the couch.
Exactly. I mean, they're on their butt 8 hours a day. The only exercise is walking to work and leaving.
You're eating Doritos and pizza. Bro, you're not gonna make it past 65.
I honestly think Postmates and Uber Eats are killed more people than they've actually helped. I really do. It cracks me up. I mean, because I'm like we're both Generation X, and I think with the Z's and the millennials, they don't appreciate actually having to go to get things. Like, it's so funny. I have friends that have kids. They're like, oh, you guys went to shopping malls? You guys did? It's like, yeah, we'd walk like 2 or 3 miles in the mall. We'd meet friends, we'd go get some clothes, and we'd scurry on home. But you don't think about how many steps you put in or how much physical exercise. All of this stuff goes into what's going on. I think nowadays, a lot of people don't talk about this, but younger children having diabetes at a young age from all the crap that they eat. I mean, I'm sorry, if you go to Starbucks every day and you're under 15 years old, you got to think about, wow, how many calories did I get? I got a double frappuccino with sugar and this and that, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's literally like the equivalency of eating like 3 or 4 Big Macs, if you think about it, in a cup.
So, stop me if I talked about it too much, but why do you think your parents were not a fan of healthy food?
I just think because it's easy. Because when you get older, my dad's 75, my mom was 74. They're only a year apart. My dad, when we were younger, I think that he did. I mean, when we were kids, my sister and I, they used to fix a lot more home-cooked meals. But even then, they weren't the best. So it really comes down to diet more than anything else. I have a lot of friends that always jump on my case about, they know I want to work out and train and get ready for all these races or whatever. And they're like, well, but you're eating this, you're eating that, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's a big part of it. I think if you look at a healthy lifestyle, it really breaks down to 3 things. What you eat and what you put in your body, how hard you work, how hard you train, and then how much sleep you get. Those are the 3 main factors. I think that's also the 3 main factors in fighting cancer, fighting any kind of things that are going to break down your body from the inside. Like the study, the YouTube video we watched, it was basically he was mentioning multiple studies, but all of it comes down to cellular breakdown. And that's what cancer is. It's cells breaking down and then reproducing. That's what a cancer cell is. That's happening in our gut every second of every day.
Oh, there's another I forget the guy's name, but I saw the interview on Impact Theory. He talks about cancer. He says that 70% of healthy bacteria is in our gut.
Yep, absolutely. And then what you take, I'm a big believer in supplements.
When the healthy bacteria, I mean those that are beneficial to your body.
Yeah, it's called healthy flora. Healthy flora, yeah. And you actually can take multiple kinds of supplements to help yourself out with those things. Probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics it's like every time you take one of those supplements that has like a couple million probiotic flora in it, it helps to fight all the stuff like colds, flus, corona, cancer as well. All that stuff starts in the gut. And if you're not feeding your gut proper probiotics and prebiotics, it can't break down that stuff, and then cancer takes over. I mean, and what's so crazy about it, and I look at my mom's stuff, as far as January of this year, we're in almost in August now. We're in the middle of July, almost towards the end. She had cancer in her blood in January, but no visible tumors that we know of. And I really...
And again, referring to some of these research videos that I've watched, the cancerous tumor, when it's actually noticeable, or when they do locate it, is the size of a pin's.
Yeah, that's exactly what
pinhead.
Yeah.
And that's already too much.
That's already stage 1 to stage 2. What most people don't know.
Yes.
And with my mom,
but you that's you can have cancer and not
Yep.
have it be anywhere.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, I guess it's in the blood.
It's in the blood.
beginning.
It's at a cellular level, and it's in the blood. With my mom, was so crazy.
So it's best to deter it
Yep.
before because when it's already the size of a pinhead, then
Well, I mean,
that's kind of too much already.
So just to talk about my mom, I mean, they discovered it via either a PET or a CT scan in March. She had cancer in her liver, and this wasn't a solid. This was a floating tumor. It wasn't like one that had stuck to any kind of a cellular wall, and it was the size of the tip of a pencil in March. And she was already freaking out when she told me this, and I thought, man, it's only the tip of a pencil. I don't know why they didn't consider doing radiation at that point, because that's like stage 1, stage 2 almost. But it went from being the tip of a pencil in March to in April, almost May, being the size of an eraser on a pencil, and it had spread to her pancreas, which is like, it's like a nail in the coffin right there. That's
eraser of a pencil. That's huge.
Yeah. To go from
cancer.
the tip,
Yes.
in 4 or 5 weeks, to go from the tip of a pencil to an eraser on a pencil, and then to spread to your pancreas. And at that point, of course, my mom was, she was really distraught, and I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I still had hope that she could fight it and come back from it. But it got so fast. I mean, it was really like a roller coaster.
And you're saying this was detected in January?
No, that was detected. The tip of the pencil was in March. By end of April, almost May, it was eraser, and it was in the pancreas. June, it had already spread to her lymph nodes, lymphatic, her gallbladder, the bile ducts in the gallbladder, which process urine and waste and everything. And then, I mean, it got really, really, it got severe within like 4 weeks, where she was able to walk and be normal. Like on my birthday in April, she seemed happy and normal and jovial. By the end of April, we were already, double checking the will, doing all this stuff. And like I said, I mean, I'm amazed she hung on as long as she did. I just think really the doctors don't want to tell you the truth. I think that I haven't lost faith in the medical industry. I just think that doctors should tell you the truth. I don't care what people think about being nice or, learning how to deliver bad news. If I had stage 4 cancer and I was going to die in 10 days, I'd want the doctor to tell me that and my family. With my mom, I really felt like her main practitioner doctor was great, and his assistant, but the people at the hospital that were in charge of, because she had a blocked gallbladder, and they were thinking about doing a gallbladder surgery and then putting a stent in. They refused to do that because of a couple things. One, her red blood cells were very, very low. She kept getting blood transfusions and getting platelets and stuff to keep her feeling good. But it's pretty extreme when you go to a hospital. You have all these doctors coming and going, nurses coming and going. You just want somebody to tell you, look, your mom's going to be dead in 2 weeks. I never got that, and that really angered me.
That you could have, if you did get that information, maybe you could have more time to prepare mentally for this change.
Exactly, because it is a humongous change, especially for husbands and wives, as well as kids and family. And I think that, nowadays when people hear cancer, I think that it doesn't really sink in the time that you have. How much time, do you have with your family or whatever. And I think with me, I really am still kind of angry that the hospital just, like one time I was with my folks, and this was about 3-4 weeks ago. Yeah, but it was about 2 weeks before my mom passed. And we're in the hospital. We're seriously considering taking her to another hospital because they refused to do a surgery on her, but they kept giving her platelets and blood, which is good. But
do you think the surgery would have helped at this point?
I don't really know. I mean, the doctors basically told me that they thought her levels for platelets and blood were too low and she would die on the surgery table. Because basically what they'd be doing is going in there, cutting out the gallbladder and putting in stents. It might have added another month or two to her life, but basically they didn't want to tell us that would kill her or she's just going to die anyway. So a lot of times when it comes to hospitals and surgeries and procedures, they weigh being sued more than doing the actual procedure.
So you're saying if there's a chance of recovery,
yeah,
that is a real chance, but chance of getting sued is also there.
Yeah, the chance of getting sued.
They're not going to.
They weigh the chance of getting sued for killing your mother or father or loved one a lot more than actually the care of the people. And I remember saying to the PA, I said, well, what's the story here? What? And she's like, she would not answer with a straight question. What's her cancer journey going to look like? I'm like, well, I can tell you what her journey is going to be. If you don't do the surgery, she's going to be dead in like 2 weeks. And that was the case. But see, they didn't want to tell us the truth about it. The cancer spread so severely, like her whole entire intestines was just full of cancer. And she wasn't, and here's the other crazy thing. So the chemo they had her on, and this isn't the hospital, this is the actual cancer treatment place that gave and I guess administered the chemo. The chemo was so extreme, it caused her to have leukemia. I know without a shadow of a doubt, it caused her to have leukemia. So that's just another cancer. I mean, she went from having lung cancer to pancreatic cancer to cancer in lymph nodes, cancer in her intestines, bile ducts, and then leukemia on top of that. But I think that the chemo, it really just, I mean, if I were a wagering guy about the whole thing, I'd say that the chemo probably sped it all up.
So, somewhere I heard that after the age of 60, chemo is not recommended because, it all depends on how healthy and strong someone is.
Exactly.
But for the most part, chemo is not recommended after the age of 60.
Yeah, I mean,
is that true from what you've heard?
I've heard a lot of different things. A lot of them contradict each other. I think that doctors nowadays,
where is the truth? It has to be with the Eskimos and the African tribes.
Well, I mean, there's
something to it. They don't get cancer.
They don't get
like
it.
Everyone
not
else.
not like we do here in America and other countries. That's for sure. But I think that their physical activity is a big part of it. Also, I think that the way that we treat things. I mean, I think that a lot of these doctors know. I don't think it's even the doctors. I think it's the hospitals know they're going to make such a premium on administering these drugs that they don't really care. I mean,
I'm gonna kind of interject there. You're talking about they're gonna make a premium.
Yeah.
My aunt had a blood pressure episode situation. She went to the hospital for 3 days to get that.
Yeah, get it lowered.
Guess how much her bill was?
$100,000.
$46,000 to lower blood pressure.
Yeah.
I've looked at her bill.
Yeah.
Okay. This is, try not to laugh.
Yeah.
But they have an item for 1 cent there.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
they have all these things.
To put it in perspective,
it's like they've created all the parts that they've used that they've created another person or something.
The medical industry in this country is
so much in there to lower the blood pressure. Give me a break.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about this. This is a really good example of just my own situation. I've never had a major surgery, thank God. I've had a couple cuts and where I've needed stitches over my lifetime. Never had a broken bone. Never had a cavity. But one thing I will tell you, I had one kidney stone. Had a kidney stone. And I know this was from drinking too much beer and probably eating too much junk food. But a lot of the fluids people drink cause these kind of things, cause kidney stones. And I went, it was so strange, I never had this feeling before. You know, everybody says that having a kidney stone is harder or much more painful than delivering a baby. Now, I don't know. I mean, I guess women could attest to what's more painful, giving birth or having kidney stones. But I just remember I woke up, I tried to urinate, couldn't pee. I was like, what the heck's going on here? I was like, man, maybe I'm just dehydrated. Drink a lot of water. That's the worst feeling. You're consuming tons of water trying to pee, and you just can't. And I remember it started in my lower back, and it was like cascading waterfalls of pain. That's the best way I can describe it. Like I'd feel normal, then like I was getting electrocuted with a cattle prod. So I ended up going to the hospital, and I thought, okay, cool. I'll go to the emergency room. I have health insurance. I go and I look at this. I go in. This is during Corona. First of all, I'm sitting here in a wheelchair, like hunched over in extreme pain, like someone just stabbed me with a knife in my lower back and into the front here. And they're like, do you have corona? Do you? And I'm like, dude, just get me in the freaking emergency room right now. I'm like yelling profanity because, of course, it happened at like 2 a.m, which is spectacular. Let me tell you.
Well,
Yeah.
there's probably no
Yeah.
waiting line at 2
No, there was no waiting line. They could have just literally rolled me in there to get me a CT scan because that's what they do. Whenever you have a kidney stone, they either do a PET scan or a CT scan, more than likely a CT scan kind of x-ray. And they know with the radiologist on hand within like 5 minutes. They don't even have to waste the time. They know within 5 minutes doing a CT scan if you have a kidney stone. And so anyway, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh crap, I'm in those beds that are kind of curved, they're not straight. I'm like, I just want to lay flat or I want to sit up, one of the two, because it literally felt like someone's just stabbed me with a fork in the front and the back every time I tried to move. And all they did to me, and this is crazy, they gave me an IV drip and they gave me an aspirin. Oh, they gave me an aspirin, an IV drip, and 1 pill of morphine. All right. I thought, okay, cool. They said, just take this, go home, lay flat, drink lots of fluids, and you'll pee out the kidney stone.
Wait. Let me guess. Your bill was like 30 grand.
No, it wasn't 30 grand. It was actually, I think, $15,000 to $20,000. I was only in there maybe 20 minutes in the hospital. So I looked it up. I was like, what the hell? Of course,
that's fraud.
Yeah, it's straight up fraud. I mean, I'm sorry. I understand. I mean, I should have gone to school to be a radiologist because they can look at your CT scan in less than 5 minutes to tell you if you have a tumor, if you have this or that. I mean, you literally just look at the x-ray. Oh, yeah, this person has this. I mean, they can literally look in 1 minute, probably at 10 scans, and make $500 to $800 minimum per scan that they look at. The machine itself, I mean, I know that that's a big part of the bill. To do it, I know how expensive those machines are. They're in the millions for those machines that do CT scans. But it's kind of crazy because you know that they make a premium based off a number. So they probably use the CT scan 100 times in a day.
Okay, so obviously no one, I mean, 80% of people, maybe 90% of population cannot handle those bills.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean,
who pays them?
Well, see,
what
that's
is the
thing.
point? What is the point of
So-
writing a bill
so
for
here's the
30,
thing.
50,
Yeah.
100, 200,000?
The insurance company usually picks up after a certain premium. Some people's premiums are 500. Like my parents have great health insurance. Theirs is like 500 to 1,000. Then it picks up after that. For major things like chemo, they paid out. I mean, my parents probably spent out of pocket $500,000 over the last 5 years, at least. And then the rest was all caught up by the insurance. But you know, it's crazy what these things cost. If you're going to get cancer and it's a pancreatic or something, you should be expecting to spend $25,000 to $50,000 no matter who you are, on top of insurance. A lot of these hospitals write off those bills. I mean, I have friends that have gone into Grady and had major, like they were in a car wreck and their neck was all jacked up and they had like a messed up disc and they had a disc surgery on their spine and they didn't have health insurance, but the hospital picked it up. I mean, that's the case. I think that kind of happened with part of the time I had the kidney stone. The hospital picked up part of it, but you're totally on the line for paying for the radiologist. If you have a taxi ride, of course, you have to pay out of pocket for that. And then any kind of nurse stuff. But still, to the fact, think about this. A bottle of morphine, if you buy it with just a prescription using GoodRx, it costs $5 to $10. Morphine, you know. I looked at the price. They charged me $90 for that 1 pill. And I'm like, damn, they probably got this in like surplus, probably spent $10 to $15 for a bottle. It has 100 pills in it. They're charging everybody $100 for something they paid $10, $15 for, and there's 100 of them. So you do the math on that. That's literally like thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars they make off of $15. I mean, saline. Saline is the other thing. A saline solution bottle, a bag.
What really caught my attention when I was looking over the bill, my aunt's bill, was the fact that they had an item. It's all itemized.
Right.
For 1 cent.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
and that was
okay,
probably
okay, just I don't know what to tell you, but don't put it there.
Yeah.
Just forget about. I don't know, 1 cent.
To me,
put that in there just
and you
to
said
make it look
$45,000. I'm willing to bet
for 3 days to lower blood pressure.
And you know what they probably used? They probably gave her a ton of saline solution, and the saline solution, you buy that in wholesale, it's $50 a bag or less. Saline, they charge you $1,000 for that bag. So she probably got, if she was in the hospital that long, probably 2 or 3 bags of saline a day. They probably made $10,000 off her just in saline. It probably cost them $100 or less. So think about that. I mean, it's like you're talking about 100 times profit or 1,000 times profit off of something.
The thing is, nobody. I mean, I don't know. Unless you're very wealthy,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able to handle those bills.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if you have paid off your home,
Yeah,
they will go after your house.
exactly. They'll take it from you over medical treatment.
And all you have to do is get sick one time.
Yeah,
And I'm not talking about your arms or legs falling off. I'm
Yeah.
talking about a blood pressure episode. And you can just lose everything you've been saving
Well, yeah,
up
I mean,
for your entire life.
I just find it so amusing. I mean, I don't hate doctors or nurses.
Well, the thing
mean,
is, I believe they have good intentions. I think
Yeah.
they're in the bind between a rock and a
Well,
hard
I think a
place.
lot of them realize just how messed up it really is, like the process of it all. I mean, one thing I find complete disgust in after my mom's experience is the hospice, the way hospice works. Most people.
How does it work?
So basically, they need to change the name from hospice to we are going to kill you care, because that's really what it is. It's end of life. We are going to kill you one way or another treatment.
Wow.
And I mean, that's another thing my parents were lied to.
crazy.
No one they claim they weren't told this, but I find it very hard to believe the way hospice works here in Georgia, at least. Basically, when you're terminal, the hospital wants to get you out of that room as quickly as possible, because that's another space that you're occupying.
That's another
Yes.
space that they can be
They can-
charging someone $15,000 a night.
They could be, yes, exactly, $10,000 to $15,000 a night, and I mean, all these people are making a killing. I don't ever try to belittle what a doctor does or what a nurse does, but I think that we need to, as a country, change the way. I mean, I'm not a big fan of government taking over everything, but maybe at the state level, it needs to change the way the hospitals work, the way the doctors and nurses work. There needs to be better codes of ethics when it comes to describing things. I mean, like I said, I'd rather be told, hey, your mom's going to die in 14 days than what's her cancer treatment look like? And I was just looking at my family like, who is she talking
just
to?
this open-ended
Yeah.
question. What's
Yeah.
your cancer treatment
Which
look
is
like?
stupid. You need to tell me.
Ask me specific questions and tell
Yeah.
me the things that you really know.
Yes. Don't.
As a medical professional.
Yeah,
Don't give me this runaround.
like I said,
I
I've,
can see right through you.
I've to this day.
Tell me the
I've,
truth, right?
I've lost a lot of faith in physician's assistants after what I experienced with my mom passing away. The fact that you were asking you a question. Does she have to have this surgery? What happens if she doesn't have this surgery? How long do you think she's going to live? And none of those questions were answered. And I'm like, here's myself, my dad, and my sister. We're all like, can we please just get an answer to one of these questions, if not all of them? And it's just you get the runaround from so many people. And I have a lot of friends that are nurses, and the traveling nurses, for some reason, I feel like there's a difference in the treatment you get between a traveling nurse and an RN or a basic nurse. And it amazes me how I hear all these excuses for everything. I'm a solutions guy. Basically what I do for money, people come to me with problems and I fix those problems. That's what I do. So when I look at my mom's cancer and I look at her treatment, I look at what's going to be the best thing to treat her. And I just honestly think that a lot of these doctors, nurses, and people in general in the medical field don't know the answers to any of these questions.
That's what this research is talking
Yeah.
about. They don't really know.
Yes. And
They're giving a protocol to follow.
Yes.
And then if you don't, then people.
Well, they're not
professionals' licenses can be pulled if you
they're
don't follow
not
the
into
protocol. You can get in trouble.
Right.
So if you have some new treatment idea,
Well, yeah, I mean,
or something that has worked for someone, you can now go to this cancer treatment center and say, "Hey, can we try this?" They're gonna say, "We don't do this
Right.
here."
What I look at it, yeah, because they're afraid of losing their license, they're losing their insurance, all of that stuff, so they can't practice in their profession anymore. And my attitude about that is,
But
okay.
the thing is, the treatment may work, and it
That's
probably has worked for some people. And if you're, let's just talk straight.
Yeah.
If you're gonna die, you might want to try whatever it is that's out there.
One of the things I look at with my mom, so the tumor they took out of her, they actually have it at, I don't know if it's at the hospital or if it's at some other cancer treatment place. They experiment on the tumor that my mom had that they removed
Are
with
you talking
different
about
treatments.
biopsy?
Yes. Yeah,
And this is another thing that I've heard. Just doing a biopsy, you can disturb the microenvironment of the tumor. They can spread it. It can grow it and make it bigger.
Yeah.
So it's very dangerous to do a biopsy.
This is after this with my mom in particular case, they've already removed the tumor. Mm-hmm. They keep it on ice and they experiment different treatments on it to see what can kill it and what can't. They're actually her tumor is kind of like a Frankenstein Peachtree dish of exploration. That's really what's going on with her. I mean, that's the only part of her body that's still alive. She was cremated, like the same day that we had the funeral a couple Mondays ago. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting, and I think my mom would be. It would make her happy knowing that if maybe by some chance they're able to find a cure for cancer by experimenting on her tumor, she would have no problem with that. Because at the end of the day, you want to save people's lives. You want to give them the best quality of life. But I just think that the way we're going about it is completely wrong. Like the stuff we were talking about with that YouTube video. A lot of doctors, we just keep using one poison to kill another poison, is what it is. And it doesn't work. I mean, it's not working, honestly. I think in 20 years, we will be using a different treatment for cancer treatment.
Well, perhaps something that's really promising. I don't know how much you follow the AI, but I saw this show on Netflix. What is it? Let me look it up. Anyway, I'll pull it up a little bit later. But what it does is, so these scientists they were looking for molecules for some treatment or for some cure. I don't remember exactly, but then they wanted to do an inverse for what are the most toxic molecules that the AI can find, and in 6 hours it found 40,000 of most toxic, dangerous molecules to humans, and White House summoned them, and they're like, how much computing power do you need to be able to get these molecules formulas? And they said they pulled out a Mac, and they said a 6-year-old Mac.
Yeah.
So perhaps working on the in to find a cure, maybe they can direct the computing power of the AI to start finding a cure for cancer.
I think that there's definitely some possibilities.
However, I can't help to think about the conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps there are interests that don't want you to find a cure.
I think without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion industry here making money off of people being sick. So why would they want there to actually be a cure that they don't, monopolize? That makes perfect sense to me. But I think back to the whole thing with what we put in our bodies is probably the biggest thing. Like I said, I believe without a shadow of a doubt my mom got ovarian cancer from baby powder. And I think that
and what baby? Oh yeah,
it was
you're
Johnson
talking about Johnson and Johnson baby
But there are
powder.
other things that people get. I mean, you hear about one of the studies I was thinking about studying recently would be what's the statistics of people in India that have cancer? Because most people never really talk about this, but 7 of the 10 dirtiest cities in the world are in India. So I find it interesting how we never hear those kind of statistics. Like if the water there is so toxic, if the air is so bad, if the food is so bad and poisoned, what's the statistics of longevity and people getting cancer? Like what is the average age people start developing cancer?
So do you know?
I don't. I'm actually I'm going to start studying that because I think that's a big part of the dirtiest cities in the world should have the highest percentage of people with cancer, hands down. Like you're talking about people that were Native Americans, people living in Africa, people that live a clean life. I think that they probably live longer and have healthier lifestyles than people that live in cities and urban areas.
Yeah, I also heard that there are cities in India that their plumbing and all that, the sewer,
Well, everything. I mean, people
it
still
just floats in the streets.
the same water that people drink from their lakes and rivers are the same water that the livestock live in, or people, they still cremate people and pour their ashes into some of the same rivers. And then if you look at the air in a lot of cities in India, it's not nearly as clean as the air here in America. But we always hear that it's our fault for everything in the environment. But I don't know. I think as a world or as a planet, we have to like look at what damage we cause to it, not just through like pollution, vehicles, what kind of food we eat, but just literally what companies and what commercial companies do to industrial companies do to the air quality. Because think about it, it doesn't matter how great you are physically, if you're breathing in dirty air, yeah, it's going to cause you to have all kinds of issues, respiratory, lung cancer, all that stuff. And it's crazy if you think about it. But for me, I mean, I actually have been trying to be very proactive with all the stuff I'm doing training wise. I try to limit it. I got a hamburger yesterday, and I was hating it this morning. I was like, oh man, I can't be doing that for a week. But I eat pretty darn good. I mean, I eat red meat once or twice a week at the most, and I usually fix it myself. We eat a lot of fish, a lot of chicken. I think that if you look at diet-wise, I know, oddly enough, there's a huge Asian contingency here in Atlanta. A lot of people on Beaufort Highway, I know a lot of those doctors, acupuncturists, people that are in medicine, people are in herbs, and the stuff they do. I mean, I've seen people that got over breast cancer in their 80s, and they didn't get any radiology or chemo. They just went straight on herbs, acupuncture, herbs, and detoxing, and those people are still alive.
Detoxing along with fasting is probably has to do something with cutting out those sugars, so the cells cannot start getting energy from a fermentation process.
I think the keto right now, I'm actually fine tuning things for me. I mean, I'm trying to limit out food. Like I said, I had a hamburger yesterday. I was hating it this morning, but the food that I eat, a lot more vegetables. It's interesting when you look at different green leaves and stuff. A lot of people think it's great to eat unlimited spinach, but it's actually, some of the studies I've been seeing recently, it's actually bad for guys to have like unlimited spinach. It works against and fights testosterone reproduction in the body. So that's not really great for men. It's more for women, but other lettuces are better for us. But there's so many vegetables out there that, I mean, the craziest things I've discovered in the last couple of years. So I work on homes, work on whatever, and I do the running and stuff. Sometimes I'll do 2 5Ks in one weekend, and I'm hating it on Sunday. And one of the things I discovered was tart cherry juice. That works miracles for achy joints, bones, soreness.
Another thing that I've in watching these researchers, one thing that I've heard is pomegranate juice.
Pomegranate juice. Yep.
It really helps out with cancer.
Oh yes, that is, as well as when you have urinary tract infections, they always tell you to drink tons of cranberry juice. But cranberry juice can be acidic as can be, but we're talking about when you hear that pomegranate and cranberry are both really good for you. But I'm telling you, most of the people I know that are health wellness doctors and gurus, they love the tart cherry juice. You try to find the one that has the least amount of sugar, because that's another thing you got to worry about. If you have cancer, you don't want to be pumping large amounts of juices into you because they have natural sugars. But you can find some that are kind of like diet that have very little calories, very little sugar, and it makes a big difference. I just know of me, I was extreme pain about a week or two ago when I did a 5K, and then I was doing free weights, and I was working on a house on ladders all day long. I was like, oh my God, I'm like handicapped. I literally drank a glass of tart cherry juice one night, and the next morning, gone. So, I could have taken ibuprofen, I could have taken acetaminophen, I could have taken a lot of things, but nothing really works as well as natural juice. I think it breaks down the uric acid in your joints and in your bones a lot better than anything else. Mm-hmm. So,
well, hey, Bob. Just let's see. It's almost an hour and a half of this little interview about cancer information. Kind of want to wrap up here. In summary, what would you say the lessons that you have learned with having a family member go through such a devastating experience for her, your mother, and for all of you guys. What's some of the lessons?
Okay.
And if you can just kind of
Summarize it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that the first thing you want to do when you find out you have any kind of cancer diagnosis is you got to put together a team of really good people to help you. Doctors, nurses, family members. You have to talk about all the stuff that it entails with the treatment of cancer. You definitely need to do your research on the hospitals. I think that I don't know if it's even out there, but I would look at statistical facts and numbers of people that are cancer survivors as opposed to people that have passed away from cancer. Like I said, I think a great place to start in the Southeast is the Emory Center Winship. That's one of the best cancer treatment places in the whole entire East Coast. If you can get there with a cancer treatment and you have good insurance, I would go there in a heartbeat, like the next day. Number two, I would say you have to change your diet up. No more processed food, no more garbage, no more fried foods, no more diet drinks, no more.
Limit glucose and
get
glutamine.
rid of all of it. Yes, and and one of the mistakes people make is they say, okay, I'll eat healthy. I'm gonna have 2 or 3 apples and 2 or 3 bananas, and it's like all that. It's got sugar in it. People don't think about that stuff. I'm also a big believer in supplements. Supplements, because they're going to tell you when you get cancer, you've got to change what you put in your body besides just food. I'm a big believer in organic multivitamins. I do omega-3s. I do, I'm trying to think of all the different ones I take. Omega-3s. I do ginkgo biloba is something that actually it helps with circulation and blood flow. And then being proactive about getting scans. One of the things we do here in Atlanta, we have a place, I told you about this place, Virtual Imaging. It's a spectacular place to go get heart scans, chest scans. They'll do those for free. Of course, they are going to try to do the pitch where you buy a package of them. And, it's crazy. I actually just did that. My girlfriend bought 10 of them. And like I said, I got a scan. I thought I was in perfect shape. I am as far as calcium and blood scores. I'm not in any risk of getting a heart attack. I get that every year. But like I said, they found that I had a slight, hernia, and that I had some, not excessive, but some pre-damage to some of my discs in my lower back and my spine. I'm like, okay, and make sure I don't go crazy doing squat lifts and leg presses and stuff like that anymore. And, that's important stuff to find out. And then with my girlfriend, they found out she had a cyst on one of her ovaries. We're getting that checked out to make sure that's not something that could turn into cancer.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So all that stuff, you have to be very proactive about getting scans. And what I will tell you about that I also learned from my mom is just because you go and get a CT scan, it's usually in that particular region where they're doing the CT scan. So if you complain about having a chest issue, they're only doing the CT scan in the chest. They're not getting your whole body. So that's why I'm a big believer in the EBCT scans that Virtual Imaging offers, because it literally goes head to your knees. So if there's any tumor from your head to your knees, they're catching it. And they're getting stuff that doctors don't even see. Eventually, I think we'll get to the point where all of these hospitals will have EBCT scans.
What is the place that you go and get these scans?
In Atlanta, it's Virtual Imaging. There's actually 2 offices in Atlanta that do this. And it's really peace of mind more than anything else. But my dad actually has been having a lot of coughing over the last couple of years. I'm taking him there in the next week or 2 to get a chest scan, because I really feel like his doctor's missing something. There's something going on in his lungs. I'll be sitting with him, he's like, and I'm like, man, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's just phlegm. I'm like, Dad, it might be a lot more than just phlegm. You got to get checked out. So I would tell everybody that if you have access to getting an EBCT scan, if you're in Atlanta, go to Virtual Imaging and get that done. It's the greatest peace of mind you could have for any kind of lung or any kind of stuff in your body. I mean, they do a chest and a lung scan for free if you basically just go in and listen to their spiel. Mm-hmm. But it's better to know that you don't have lung cancer, you don't have any kind of clots. They can actually see blood clots with these scans too. So I'm a big believer in that. And of course, changing your diet, getting a gallon of water a day, doing a good organic multivitamin, and then getting at least an hour or 2 of physical exercise. So I think all that stuff.
A lot of that sounds like preventative.
Yes.
Maintenance.
Yep.
And
that's the best thing you can do, because it's better to live a healthy lifestyle, and try to stay healthy.
Try to preserve
because all the doctors and nurses do,
what you have already.
They only do treatment. They don't do prevention. So it just depends on what kind of life you want to live, you know? So, I mean, like I keep hearing this phrase, cancer journey, cancer journey. Your life is a journey.
I do want to suggest, and this may not be suitable for all, but carnivore diet has helped some people.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, ultimately, here's the thing. People that eat nothing but vegetables have, in my opinion, they have a lesser life span as far as, longevity. I mean, our bodies are blood and flesh. They're not made of broccoli. I love broccoli, don't get me wrong, but you can't just live off of just greens and supplement your whole life. You actually have to eat fish. You have to eat chicken. My grandmom is 94 years old, and she actually eats stewed chicken soup every week, probably 3 or 4 days a week. And I would not be surprised if she lives another 5 or 6 more years. I mean, that's literally her diet. She eats boiled down chicken broth, chicken bone marrow, chicken meat, and rice. And she's probably going to see 100 years old.
Nice.
So I'm 47. I'm like, well, she's almost twice my age. So there's definitely something to that. Having a liquid diet, eating soups. I don't think it's always good to like overcook meat. I'm a big believer in medium rare to medium on steaks. These people that cook the life out of it, you're literally eating a hockey puck that's going to sit in your intestines for months. So it's much better to undercook food than it is to overcook it.
If you're a Christian, you might want to have your steak well done. No blood there.
No, I don't think that the Christianity has anything to do with that. I think do you want to be sick? Because if you eat nothing but way the heck cooked steaks, it's going to tear your stomach up.
I did find this AI documentary.
Okay.
It's
whether it's already happened.
What is it?
Killer robots.
It's killer robots, and this is where they find all those toxic molecules within 6 hours. 40,000 molecules.
Yeah. I mean,
they were summoned to the White House, and this is unprecedented. So I'm looking forward for AI to help out with cancer treatments.
I think that AI is going to be a big part of it.
Physical,
and one thing I've never really looked into is, all the stuff Lance Armstrong used to do to himself. I know he got in trouble with breaking the rules when it comes to the Tour de France with biking, but, he had, stage 3 or stage 4 cancer or stage 2, and he beat it. But what they don't ever talk about is how he beat it. From what I've learned, little research I've done, he basically was purifying his blood. The same way when you donate platelets, the machine separates the hemoglobin, the platelets, the red blood cells. That's what a lot of these professional athletes do because they have the means financially. But I really think that 10, 15, 20 years from now, we will be purifying our blood a lot more if you can afford it. And you'll see a lot more life because, like I said, the cancer's in your blood. So if you can pull stuff out of it.
I have this little theory that if you can make it, if you can preserve your health maybe for another, 20 to 30 years, we'll have technology to really prolong the lifespan.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
significantly.
I can't remember. One time I heard a study that they said that the brain, the spinal cord, and the nervous system in the human body was actually meant to exist for 130 years. So, I mean, you hear about these stories of people being 110, 115. It's doable, but you got to kind of see what kind of lifestyle they lived. What did they eat? What did they drink? What was their physical, exercise every day? I'm telling you, all that has to do with it. I mean,
well, what I'm curious about is how Adam lived 940 years.
Well, not everybody is a Christian or reads the Bible, but I'm a Christian, and I believe that it's all how. I mean, you got to realize that a lot of the Bible was secondhand. It's stories passed on to other people.
It's true that there's probably a lot lost in translation. Can you speak about that a little bit? How does the belief in a deity, God, or being spiritual, or being a Christian, did that play a role in your mother's
absolutely
passing to another world?
Her last few hours, last few weeks, I'd say, we talked about that. when it was just me, because a lot of conversations, it's interesting, the family dynamic, how everybody is different. Like conversations I know for a fact that my mom and dad had are totally different than conversations that my mom and I had. I feel like I was more like my mom than my dad in a lot of ways. The way I carry myself, the way I talk, the way I think. My dad's more of a linear, can only focus on one thing, micromanager, and so is my sister. Whereas my mom and I, we kind of try to see everybody's perspective a lot more. But she and I talked about this. I believe, without a doubt, my mom's in heaven, and she believed that too, which is very comforting. I mean, it's just so weird the way things happen in life. Like I said, my mom passed away March the 3rd. My dad got our dog back 2 days after the funeral.
You mean June the 3rd? I mean July the 3rd.
July the 3rd. And
Yes.
then the dog came back, our family dog, 2 or 3 days later. She started having stomach issues. We got took her to the vet the following Monday after my mom passed away. They did an x-ray on her, whole entire intestines full of cancer, just like my mom. And she was put down, of course, because we didn't want the dog to suffer. But I just find it so bizarre that within 7 days, my mom dies of intestinal cancer, just massive cancer. Same thing with my dog. And my dad and I and my sister, we all believe they're in heaven right now, And it's a little comforting. It's definitely comforting to know that,
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to be funny, but
Yeah.
you said they are all in heaven, including the dog.
Yeah, I believe without a shadow of a doubt my dog's in heaven with my mom.
I have a dog, and I'd like to believe
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. I mean, a lot of my friends believe in reincarnation, and sometimes God, I feel like some people might be reincarnated. I don't know if I would ever be, but with religion, you have to have faith in God, and it's very comforting in the day and age we live in. So many people that don't believe. I feel sorry for them more than I feel sorry for people that have loss. Because if you believe in God and you believe in the afterlife, you know that you'll see your family members again. So, I mean, to me, it's very reassuring knowing that. My mom believed in it. I believe in it. Everybody in my family believes in it. So
That's wonderful.
yeah.
I mean, it's great that you guys believe, but something that you mentioned that a lot of people don't believe.
Right.
I can sympathize with that because for the longest time, I didn't want anything to do with it.
Right, I remember-
I thought it was a
I
hoax.
remember, yeah.
That was a waste of time. Nonsense.
Yeah.
No science in it. What is this hocus pocus that you're talking about?
I just think that
But,
people that are sad, and I really think this is part of a lot of people's existence. A lot of people are sad because they don't have a belief in, whether you're a Christian, a Jew, or you're, Muslim. We all believe in a creator, and that gives you a kind of a purpose. It also gives you a knowledge of what is right and what's wrong.
Oh,
And
that's they
Yeah.
believe in the creator.
Yep.
If you subscribe to
Right.
some sort of religion, but
Yeah,
these days
yeah,
there's
so many
a lot of
people.
people
So many people are
don't believe in anything.
They don't believe-
This was
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I thought the believers were crazy.
Yeah, because there's a lot of variations of that. There's agnostic, and then there's people that are atheists. And I don't think you're ever an atheist. I just think you're agnostic. You kind of believe that there was something that created all this, but you didn't really believe in Jesus, or you didn't know, about Jesus. And I have a lot of friends that are like that. I mean, I work in the film and TV industry, and a lot of people don't, a family member dies from cancer or some tragic thing, and they blame everybody else, and not one second, I think a lot of these people ever thought about, well, that was God's plan all along, that your friend or family member was meant to pass away that time. That's the way I feel about my mom. I feel like she touched 1 million people's lives being a teacher, and it was pretty awesome what she did, her life. And I think that, a lot of people don't really have that kind of joy and happiness, and I think that's sad. I mean, I think that if more people gave Christianity or gave the Jewish faith or even the Muslim faith a shot, that they'd have a greater purpose other than themselves. So, yeah, I just think it's sad to not know love and not know God, and just feel like when you die that there's nothing.
Something I've talked to my own mother. She's she told me some stories about she had seen people die who don't know God,
Right.
and they're all scared.
Yeah.
They're just absolutely terrified in this excruciating fear before their life ends. And people who are believers, they just go away with peace.
Yes.
Peace and a smile.
Yeah, I believe that was the case of my mom. I think that's the case of a lot of people in my family. And it just, I don't ever want to know what it's like to be scared and feel like there's nothing, you know? To me, that's terrifying. And I think that's why so many people find faith in their last few hours or days of their life, you know? Because they're forced to, you know? So I just think that, why not? You know? Why not? Because, you know, there's just so many people that want to hate in this world, and life is so short to begin with. Why have a painful, hate-filled existence, you know? I think about how many awesome people I've met through going to church and all the organizations and stuff. And, you know, my girlfriend has 2 kids, 9 and 11, and I'm excited that they're getting to be part of, you know, the church in our community and all the things they get to do with their friends and the new friends they'll make through going to church.
It's like, look, hey, even if you don't believe it, to be part of that
Community.
atmosphere or community is better than being part of the drugs,
right?
Or
I think that's why a lot of these kids are kind of flipping off the handle nowadays,
or
right?
Whatever it is that
like
you
we
find
said,
on the internet, you know, that lifestyle.
When you have a lot of time on your hands, usually if you don't believe in God, you don't believe in faith or right and wrong, you are easily swayed to do bad things. So I mean, I think that's the problem with all these kids. I mean, maybe not having a mother and father, or just having a single parent in the home, not having friends to help them. I mean, because ultimately, I think every time I get a phone call from my friends, they're usually calling to unload. that's I'm like, okay, I know that when I get a call from at least 20 of my friends, that when I see their number, I'm like, oh gosh, do I have an hour and a half? Do I have an hour?
It's like, hey, bro, guess what?
Yeah,
I'm in the middle of something. Can you tell Jesus?
That's what I'll say. Can you call me tomorrow when I have 2 hours? Because I know you're going to go off, and everybody has to unload. I think that's the best thing about having friends is that they're your therapists.
Yeah. Friends are great. Hey, Bobby. I really appreciate you coming down and talk. Right. It's really interesting. It means a lot that you were able to open up and speak about such a sensitive thing about your mother passing and cancer and all that. In closing, I just want to bring up this interview that you guys, if you're interested or know someone who's going through cancer, you can find that interesting interview of Dr. Thomas Seyfried through Drew Purohit podcast. And Bobby, can you tell people how if they can get a hold of you or
yeah, absolutely,
or if you have, social media?
Yeah, they can reach out. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It's Bobby Browning. My email's I don't do AOL obviously, but I still do Google, and I do Yahoo. It's Bobby Browning1 at Yahoo. And then you can reach out. I know you don't want them, but my phone number is the easiest way to reach me. 404-694-2540. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I fix everything on houses. I'm on a couple of the different TV shows, Flipper Flop Atlanta, the Sell This House Atlanta, the Home Edit, and My Dream Wedding. And there's a couple other shows I'm working on right now, but I can't talk about them because I signed NDAs. But got that going on, and then I'm always, whatever film or TV role comes my way, I go for it.
Hey, Bobby, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for watching this. Subscribe to It Is Here podcast, and we'll see you next time.